This regular meeting of the Detroit Lake City Council is called to order. And at this time, I'd like to invite all of you to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda this evening is approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting held October 14th, 2014, and the special city council planning session held on October 27th, 2014. Is there anyone in the audience or any member of the council that wishes to make any additions or corrections to the minutes as they're printed?
I'd like to propose a correction.
Okay.
On page 3 of the October 27th minutes, the second sentence reads, "The motion was made by Alderman Inholt for the city to order preliminary plans and specifications for Westlake Drive from County Road 6 to Legion Road." And then down below indicates that I seconded that and it was carried. And I think there should be a period there, you know, and then that the other portion of that trail was, or of that project, I should say, was to be discussed. I'm not sure that we were ready to move ahead to plans and specs right away.
Okay.
And I don't think that that's what I understood.
And
that
that was my motion. I mean, she's correct, but my motion was for the plans and specs for that one section.
So should we pull those off and rework those and approve them next month? Would that be acceptable to the council? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion for just approving the regular city council meeting minutes from October 14th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the regular city council minutes from October 14th, 2014. Discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. And then we'll have the revised planning session minutes at our December meeting. The consent agenda is before the council, and all items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered separately in its normal sequence on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience or any member of the council that wishes to either remove or add an item to the consent agenda? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda as printed. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. At this time, I'm going to adjourn the regular city council meeting and call to order a series of public hearings. The first of which is a public hearing to give consideration to the proposed assessments for unpaid street light fee, water, sewer, and stormwater charges. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to the issue of unpaid street light fees, water, and sewer, and stormwater charges? No one? Do we have any letters or anything that came in?
Did not receive anything that I'm aware of.
All right, well then that public hearing is closed and I would entertain a motion from the council.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt the proposed assessments for unpaid streetlight fees, water and sewer and stormwater charges. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. At this time, I will call to order a public hearing to give consideration to the proposed assessments for weed cutting for the year 2014. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to the weed cutting assessment? Yes, sir. Please come forward. If you could just give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Council. Paul Renner, 1573 Willis Road,
Paul.
Lake Country Developers. We received a letter from the Mr. Gray's department talking about noxious weeds and so forth. And what we had done is in probably the middle of August, I don't remember exactly what day it was, we went out and we sprayed the weeds and so forth that we had on the west side of apartment buildings, and we sprayed thistles and so forth on lots that we have up in Stonebrook. The other lots, what we did was we went and we took and mowed them all, and so I guess I'm a little bit confused here that we pretty much did everything that the letter says. It says how to control or eradicate. It says pull, cut, disc, plow down, biological control, or treat with a herbicide labeled for the site and the noxious weeds to be controlled or mowed down. The herbicide that we used was Kirkland. So I guess we followed all of the conditions of the letter, and yet we find that they went and they mowed the property, which had thistles and so forth on. And the problem is with that, when you do that, all you're doing now is you're reseeding thistles for us. So now, instead of me spraying for the last 2 years, I can continue to spray for the next couple years. Have you got an explanation for that, Brad?
Brad, do you want to respond?
With the issue, Mr. Renner does a very good job with his properties, and he's been very responsive. And what happened out in Aspen, Timber Creek, the Aspen Drive, is we do not have road ditches in the city of Short Lakes or boulevards or part of the adjoining lot. And where the report came from is the county weed inspector went out, and the thistles are 5-6 foot high and hitting people. And that's why we drew that picture of the outline of the property and stuff. I hadn't heard from you till now, but that's why we went out and mowed that. We had so many complaints from the neighborhood, and I think some council members that got called. But now it's the edge all the way around the property that wasn't mowed.
Okay, you're talking about boulevards and so forth, because, you know, my insurance carrier will not cover us as far as cutting city property. That's not our responsibility. I feel as though that would be the city's responsibility, and we pay gas tax and so forth to maintain the streets, the boulevards and so forth. So in order for me to go out and cut city boulevards, I mean, I would have to review my insurance policy, because I cannot send a man and a tractor or mower out there to cut those boulevards. I feel as though that would be a huge risk for me to do that.
So how much is the assessment?
Well, I think one of them was, I got them here, one was $926 and the other one was $439. And I guess I just feel as though that we met all the conditions and so
Yeah,
forth.
the biggest concern is everyday communication. I guess we had a very huge trade that we weren't aware of. The 900, the 400 some was on the adjoining boulevard, but like I said, in our ordinance, I believe it makes it the homeowner or the property owner's adjoining property's responsibility to maintain that. I have that somewhere here. Yeah. That just, not good communication, so I wonder where it's from.
Okay, I guess we took the letter, followed to the T, and I guess, in a sense, maybe before that the city went out and did that, phone call would be in order. I know Terry Stevens got my number and so forth, my cell phone, and leave me a message, you know, I mean, I'm more than open to communicate. I guess I was just under the understanding that we got the letter, followed to the T, and that's behind us.
Okay. Bruce, did you have a question for Paul, or?
Well, not for Paul, just that, maybe that's some education that, at least me and the council with that. So when you talk about the boulevards, that's all over the city. We have an ordinance that basically says if the boulevard adjoins your property, you're responsible for
Sidewalk, boulevard, yeah.
keeping the weeds and all that down. Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Same thing for plowing snow on the sidewalks.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, Paul?
Well, we're gonna move on.
Yeah. Well, we're getting to that. So, does the staff have any recommendation for the situation we have with Mr. Renner, or is it the staff's recommendation that we go ahead and adopt the assessment rule as we
Well, like I
have?
said, this is the first I heard, I guess, you know, communication works both ways. And we do call Paul several times a year, and we send a nice letter, and then we have one little more weight on it, things, and I guess we did talk to Terry, yeah, my sister usually talks to him, but I guess he did evidently this year. But we follow through on that pretty good. Right now, we should have it down, but I guess I haven't thought about it enough. You want to table that, we can look at that again.
Bob, can we table the whole deal on these
I think you
weeds, or can we
approve it. You
pull?
can approve the ones that,
Proves the ones
Short of
that
that,
and we can look into this one. This one can be appealed. I can meet with Paul and Brad, and we can figure out what went on. Maybe get a report back in December.
Okay. All right, that's what we're gonna do with Paul's. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak to the issue of the weed cutting assessment?
I guess, there again, I mean, what are we gonna accomplish by tabling, or what's the direction we're going?
I guess the council just wants to get a little more information, have our staff look into it a little more thoroughly to make sure that we have all the information we want to make a good decision, so.
Okay? Are you gonna have it at the next meeting, or
At the December meeting, Paul.
December meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Bob, or you're gonna get in touch with Paul,
We'll
right?
get in touch with Paul.
Yep.
We can-
Okay.
Thank you.
Short of the boulevard, though, Mr. Renner did what he needed to do, correct?
Pardon? I didn't-
Short of the boulevard, though, everything was done that needed to be done?
Well, yeah, I wasn't aware if he sprayed that. I guess he has all the information. We weren't aware he sprayed. We have the other land is on the area where, again, neighbors, new developments, we try to be a little tolerant, grass be a little longer, and we don't require 4 inches or less. If they maintain it, the weeds and thistles and things are the biggest thing. If they can maintain that, we have some, and we get a lot of calls out. We try to work with developers, and now we're getting more and more houses in these areas, so people are more responsive to it. And so that's something we'll have to check. I wasn't aware that was free. So I did, we went out and we did, get enough complaints, you just gotta do it, and we're following our policy.
Sometimes when they spray the weeds, the neighbors still call out, because the weeds are standing. People are concerned about that, and if we don't know about it, then, we try and follow through. What we normally do is just mow the entire area, we don't spray it, because we don't, hopefully don't have to go back multiple years to kill everything.
Well, get us all the information so we can all understand it next month, and then we'll be able to make a decision.
Okay.
Thank you. Hearing no one else that wants to speak to the weed issue, that public hearing is closed, and I would entertain a motion. And that motion, Dave, would be adopting the role without Mr. Renners.
Correct.
Is there a second?
Yep, second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt the proposed weed assessment for weed cutting for the year 2014, with the one exception, we're removing the item regarding Mr. Renner, and we will take that up in December. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion's carried. At this time, I'll call to order a public hearing to give consideration to the proposed assessments for Dutch elm disease control for 2014. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to the Dutch elm disease control assessment? Hearing none, that public hearing is closed, and, yeah,
I
I'm
did
sorry.
receive one correspondence.
public hearing's not closed yet.
Thank you. A little slow with my hand there, I apologize. Mr. Jack Potter did come into the office and indicate that he was objecting and contesting the assessment for a tree removal on his property.
And yet, under what grounds, if any?
I did not get a chance to, it was the high holy days, so I did not get a chance to talk to
Also known as deer hunting?
deer hunting.
Well, should we pull it off
I would-
until December and give you a chance to talk to him?
Yes.
Without objection from the council, we'll remove that particular one from the assessment. Now the public hearing is closed, and I would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt the Dutch elm disease control assessment for the year 2014, with the exception of the one item that we removed and will take up in December. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion's carried. At this time, I'll call to order a public hearing to give consideration to the proposed assessments for street and utility improvements to Minnesota Avenue and McKinley Avenue. And before we take questions or comments from the audience, I'm going to call on our city engineer, John Pratt, to make a presentation to the audience and the council. John?
Thank you, Mayor. Before I do a presentation, is there anybody in the audience from Minnesota and McKinley Avenue? Okay. Just did one presentation, but it's early, so 1 second here.
Chuck, if you can't see, you might have to move over here. He's gonna put it up on the screen, so. Okay.
All right, close enough. As the mayor indicated, this is an assessment hearing for the proposed assessments to the improvements on Minnesota McKinley Avenue that were made over the course of the last couple of years. So purpose and overview, this hearing is a follow-up hearing. We had a public hearing prior to the project and the construction work. It was a requirement under state statute 429. We're now required to have an actual assessment hearing that will review the actual assessments on the properties that are abutting the project. We will go through just a little bit on the project background, review the improvements that were completed, the final costs, the assessments, and then the financing. And afterwards, there'll be a period for comments and questions. Just a little bit of background, the project area was Minnesota Avenue from Willow Street to State Street, and then on McKinley Avenue from Willow Street to Frazee Street. The general nature of the purpose of the improvements was to address deficiencies primarily in the sanitary sewer and the water main, and also the street surface. Both of these projects have been on the same capital improvement plan for some time. Sort of some background, we had the public input meeting in April of 2013, did a preliminary report, had a hearing in, I believe, April, the later part of April of 2013. We ended up awarding bids to the contractors, Powell Incorporated. July of 13, began construction late in the summer of 2013. Ended up suspending the work with about 80 to 85% complete November of last year. Picked up the work again this spring in April and finished up by early part of July. And that leads us to where we're at tonight, which is the assessment hearing. Real briefly, the project improvements. From a sanitary sewer and water standpoint, we did replacement of all the sewer and water mains with new PVC pipe, manholes, valves, hydrants, basically a full reconstruct. Added some water main on Minnesota to loop some stuff together. Replaced service laterals. There was some storm sewer replacement. Helped to provide a collection point for some pumps on Minnesota, and made some improvements to reduce surcharging on small portions of McKinley and also on Minnesota. And then once the underground work was done, we did a replacement on all the streets, basically edge of right-of-way to edge of right-of-way. Included sidewalk on one or both sides, depending where we're at in the project. There's a multi-use trail that was put in on McKinley around the hospital property. And at the end of the project, we also did some tree replacement in the boulevards. With that, public utilities did a coordinated upgrade on the lighting on both of the streets. So project costs and financing. The final project costs are up on the screen here. The largest cost, of course, the street improvements at $1.4 million. We had Airport Road, you'll notice that was just a change order, another project unrelated to this work that got thrown in. We have lighting, multi-use trail. Storm sewer was fairly significant at $355,000. We had sanitary sewer improvements to the tune of about $250,000. And the same with water main, we were closer to $350,000 there. So we ended up with a total project cost of $2,500,000. And our estimated project cost at the time of the public hearing before the project was about $2.4 million. And the reason for some of those increases, again, was the Airport Road project that got tacked onto this. And then also we ran into some fairly poor soil in a couple of locations, one on McKinley in particular, and a little bit over on Minnesota. And I think that resulted in about $100,000 of extra excavation that we ended up doing. Financing, the project is financed by a combination of city funds, utility funds, and special assessments to the adjacent property owners. The Costs get split out in accordance with the city's special assessment policy. Quick recap of that. The street is assessed at 50%. 50% of the standard street costs are assessed to the adjacent property owners. The standard street in a residential area is considered 36 feet wide with a 5-ton design. And the city assumes the remaining 50% and any of that oversizing beyond the 36 foot and 5-ton. Commercial properties, on the other hand, are assessed for the full cost of the street, generally because they require on-street parking, they generate heavier traffic, more traffic and things like that, compared to a residential property. Sewer and water, those are each assessed 75%. 75% is assessed to the property owners. For the standard sewer and water main, standard water main is considered a 6-inch main. A standard sewer is considered 8-inch. So that leaves the city assuming the remaining 25% plus any oversizing, looping, and hydrant costs. The service laterals are assessed 100% to the benefited property. A couple last items here. Storm sewer is picked up 100% by the city. Everybody in the city pays a stormwater utility fee, and that fund pays that. Multi-use trail was not technically assessed. That was done through a development agreement with the hospital. The lighting is 100% the city, and the public utilities pays a portion. So what's that all mean? That's this table here. We've got a column there for the assessable share, city share, and total. If you go down the line, just to briefly go over it, you see the street of the 1.4 million, 620,000 is assessed. The sanitary sewer, 120,000 of the 195,000 is assessed. All of the sanitary sewer services are. Water main, the city picked up 115,000 is assessed, and the city picked up $83,000, which is definitely more than 25% because there was some oversizing and looping that was done. So the city ended up picking up a little bit more than probably normal. And then again, water services are all assessed. So down at the bottom there gives you a kind of a breakdown of the $2.5 million in this project. Just a little over $1 million is assessed to the adjacent properties. So now we have the total assessment costs. Now we allocate that and distribute it to the benefited properties, again in accordance with the special assessment policy. Basically, the costs are divided by the number of accessible units that are on the project. In most cases, that's just footage or abutting front footage that's on the project, and then we get a rate from that. So, for example, rectangular interior lots, which is most of the properties, your accessible footage is considered the dimension of the side abutting the improvement, basically the width of your lot. There's a little bit of an example. Rectangular corner lots are a little bit different. You're assessed for the side or sides that are abutting the improvements. Generally speaking, there were, for the most part, only one side of the properties on this project were improved. Very few of them had improvement on both sides. But in that case, if there's an improvement on both sides, your accessible footage considered the dimension of your smaller side, which would be your front of your lot, plus half the dimension of the longer side, up to 150 feet. And anything over 150 on that long side is added on to that. Irregular shaped lots are generally given an average dimension. I don't think we really have any of those this time. This gives you kind of an idea. If you had a 50 by 150 foot lot, you've got the 50 feet in the front, and then half of that longer side at 75 feet. So this particular property would have 125 feet of accessible footage. Interior lots abutting two parallel streets. I bring this up because on Minnesota there's some properties that abut both Summit and Minnesota Avenue. Lots that are less than 150 feet residential or 200 foot commercial are assessed for one side of the street or one street improvement only. They can't get hit twice. But if they're greater than that depth, they're assessed for both street improvements. If they have parallel streets, which was the case on some of those properties on Minnesota. Sewer and water, interior and corner lots, it makes no difference. the way that footage is calculated for sewer and water, it's the short side of your lot. So whether or not that side of your lot is facing the improvement, we calculate the footage on the short side for everybody's property, even if the improvement's not on that short side. So you're only assessed if service is provided by that improved water main or sewer main. Services are assessed rather than footage on an each basis. So all this kind of boils down into this table. For sanitary sewer, we ended up with an assessment rate of $31.06 per foot. Service laterals for sewer were a little over $1,000 each. Water main is about $31.20 a foot. Water services for a residential water service was $1,400, $1,476. And then the street was assessed at $91 per foot. So there's some example assessments on the right-hand side here. If you had a 50-foot lot, you're looking at an assessment. If you had sewer and water and all of the benefits and all the improvements, you'd have an assessment of about $10,000. A 100-foot lot with all the improvements, an assessment of $17,800. You'll notice the estimated totals underneath there in gray. Those were the numbers that were presented at the public hearing prior to the project. So in both cases, the actual assessment is just very slightly below what was projected a year and a half ago. This is the same thing for commercial. The only change here really is the street rate is $102.90 a foot. And the increase there just represents commercial properties are assessed for that full width street and a higher tonnage road. They pay for that full thing. So the same end result, we had 50-foot lots at about $10,800 and a 100-foot lot about $19,000. Both of them are just slightly less, a couple $1,000s less than what was projected. Assessment terms and rates. So if you don't know how an assessment works, it's placed on your property taxes over a term and at a rate that's determined by the council. And Pam, I believe I have these correct. A 20-year term, and I think it was 6%. 5.75. So correction on that. The proposed assessments would be assessed over a 20-year term at 5.75%. You have the option to prepay all or a portion of your assessment, which should help in reducing interest charges that would accumulate. And if you want to do that, I think there was instructions in the letter that was sent to you telling you when you would have to do those prepayments by to avoid interest. With that is it.
So we want to hit the lights. On all of them?
One more switch.
Thank you. Okay, the way we do these public hearings is in a case like this, we have a presentation and then I'll open it up for questions first. Just questions about John's presentation or questions to the city staff. And then after that, I'll allow people to come up and make comments, either for or against, if you think you're not, for the assessments or if you have a problem with the assessments. I'll give you time to make comments. So first of all, is there any questions about the presentation?
I'm Thomas Frank,
Tom?
1015 Minnesota Avenue on top of Fox Hill. I just have two questions and 1 point for an after-action report. Your letter did not say how to make this cashier's check out or our own personal check. And then secondly, where to take this check.
Can you answer this?
You should pay those here before December 1st.
What building? I mean,
Right here. You can come to the front desk and ask for either myself or Marcy.
And this is Pam Slifka, by the way, our finance officer.
Or Tom, just give her a check right now. She'll have to.
I'd be thrilled.
And then how do we make it out?
City of Detroit Lakes.
And then my 1 point for after action report, everything went quite well, but the garbage pickup was the one that we had a problem with. And we are with Waste Management, and they don't have a local office anymore. So, and I appreciated your different phone numbers and the chain of command. And so it ended up several times, 3 or 4 times, we called the superintendent for how, like we let it go a day, our normal pickup is on a Wednesday, and it wasn't picked up Thursday at 1 o'clock, so then I called that superintendent, and they were real good. They came over with a device to put the garbage in, and I don't know where they took it. But that would be for the next street, that they have better communication with Waste Management. I think the local garbage pickups there was good communication with them.
I'm sure John will make a note of that, Tom. Thank you. Appreciate it. Other questions about the project? Tom kind of drifted off into the comment, but that's all right. Other questions? If not, I would open it up for comments. Or anybody have any comments they want to make concerning their assessments? Okay, if not.
Well, I've got it.
Bruce, go
I was
ahead.
waiting for the public here, but John, I think you need to check this one out. I'm looking at this list of assessments. I assume that's what this is. And the largest number on there is Eloise Urban. Mayor, you know Eloise. You know where her house
She's here
is.
tonight, right there.
Eloise, I don't
right there.
think 30,000 is right for you. I'm just gonna say you need to check that number.
I have checked it. It was brought up to one of the staff
Okay.
people. She has an incredibly wide
Oh.
interior lot.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. Because
Abutting footage.
I've been to her house and I can't believe that was right.
It's the widest lot in Minnesota.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thanks,
That was
Bruce.
my comment. I was trying to stick up for you, Eloise.
Okay, hearing no more comments or questions, that public hearing is closed, and I would entertain a motion from the council.
So moved.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded to adopt the assessment roll for the street utility improvements on Minnesota Avenue and McKinley Avenue. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. At this time, I will call to order a public hearing to give consideration to the proposed street and utility improvements for Washington Avenue from Highway 10 to Willow Street. And again, at this time, I'll call on our city engineer, John Pratt, to make a presentation regarding this project.
Lights, thank you. All right, we're back at it with Washington. I'll apologize in advance to some of the council and public. I know a lot of this information has been presented in a number of forms and at a number of different times, but we're having a public hearing again this evening, talking about an expanded project scope, and that's the reason for the hearing. Also, our first hearing has expired in accordance with law, so we have to have another hearing. So I'll get to it here, and I'm gonna go fairly quickly. If I miss something, I'm more than willing to meet with anybody individually on that, but there's a lot of information, so I'm gonna scoot here. Purpose and overview, again, we do wanna get some input and get your questions, comments, and things like that relative to the proposed project. It is a requirement of the state statute 429 again, because there will be some assessments involved with this. We're looking at an expanded project scope. So I'll go over the background and some of the existing conditions and what we're gonna do, costs and things like that, and afterwards, just like the hearing before, there'll be a period for question and answer. So a little background here. The tale is pretty long at this point, but project right now, as we're proposing, it includes Washington Avenue all the way from Willow to basically just short of Highway 10 or near Front Street. This is a joint project with Becker County. Washington Avenue is, in fact, a county road. This is just a picture highlighting the project. The project's been on the city's capital improvement plan and the county's capital improvement plan for several years. It's been postponed a number of times, most recently over the course of this last summer. But this goes back to, this was a primary focus of the RDG Business Corridors redevelopment plan that the city approved and adopted somewhere back, I think, around 2006 or 7. We've had multiple planning and input meetings. to this point with just the core downtown group to try to kind of mold the project into something that everybody felt good about. The Chamber's been working with downtown patrons on facilitating some promotional planning and things like that for the duration of the construction. So bringing us up to speed, we went through this process last winter. We bid the project this summer twice, rejected it twice, primarily due to real high costs, higher than anticipated costs anyway. So we're taking another poke at it here through the course of this winter. What we're doing is actually looking at an expanded project scope. So instead of just the 2 downtown blocks from Frazee to Front Street, we're now looking at going all the way down to Willow. And yeah, that sounds counterproductive, I suppose, putting a larger project, hoping for a cheaper one. But we're hoping for reduced per unit costs, these sort of along the lines of buying in bulk, I guess. So we've revised the preliminary engineering report to include the entire length of the project. That's been presented to both the City Council and the County Commission. The report's been approved. The county at this point has authorized the design and the preparation of the plans and specs, and the council will be considering that tonight after the hearing. So we'll just go through a few of the high points here. Existing conditions, the sanitary sewer, in general, it's old. It's about 60 years old or more, best we can tell based on records. It's starting to show some deficiencies. We've televised it. There's cracks and sags and roots and infiltration and that sort of stuff. In addition, we get concerned about if we do any street improvements over that old sanitary sewer, it can be prone to collapsing or further damage. So the only note on the sanitary sewer is the southern 400 feet was replaced in 1998, and that's PVC pipe and then it's in good condition. The water main's real similar. A lot of it is in that 60-year-old category. A couple of exceptions. The 800 block, which would be the mall block, that is in fair condition. It's a lesser pipe grade material than we currently use, which is concerning, but it is newer. It was done in what year, Larry? 88, 85, 86, something like that. And so the rest of it from the 800 block south is, in that 50s category or older. And again, with the exception of that southern 400 feet just north of Willow, that was done in 98 and is in good condition. Storm sewer, there's really not a lot to say here. There's just right now storm sewer at the intersections in the downtown area, and then a little piece of storm sewer kind of just north of Willow for about 300 feet. Everything else flows by gutter to the intersections and the collection points. And by all measures, it's in pretty fair condition. We don't have a lot of issues. We have a little bit of some surcharging that happens down at the Willow intersection, but nothing real significant. The street, on the other hand, for the most part, through this entire corridor, is in very poor condition. Very few people argue that. It's in tough shape. Rehabbing it is not viable at this point. It's been rehabbed, it's been overlaid, it's been seal coated. But there's a lot of varying data here. I have it on, Willow to 400 feet north. That was redone in 1998. It's not all that old. It hasn't been rehabbed or anything like that. Then from that point, just north of Willow, all the way up to Holmes. That was originally constructed in 51. It's been overlaid a couple of different times in the 70s and then in 98. It's currently 50 feet wide, kind of the southern portion, south of Frazee, and 47 in the downtown. And then the last 800 block from Holmes to Front was last overlaid in 88 when the water main was put in around the mall, but also originally constructed in 51. Traffic signals, we've looked at this pretty extensively. By and large, they're in pretty good condition. They lack some operational features that are coming with newer signals, such as push button pedestrian activation and things like that. We're not required to do any of those upgrades at this point, but by and large, they're in pretty good shape. They were re-coated or repainted in just this past summer. So proposed improvements, this is what we're planning right now. From a sewer and water standpoint, it's basically a full replacement. Replace the sanitary sewer with 8-inch PVC pipe, except for that southern 400 feet. It's in good condition. It's done in 98, it's not old. Front and Holmes intersections, the crossing pipes are in good shape. Water main, replace all of the water main with a couple of exceptions with 8 or 12-inch PVC pipe, depending where we're at. One exception would be, again, that southern 400 feet. And we talked about the 800 block. That is relatively new pipe, but it's not the same grade of pipe that we currently use. We've gone back and forth on that a little bit, and ultimately decided that we would be best served by replacing that pipe, getting it done while we're in here, while the project's going on, and not coming back for a while. So the city's elected to replace that, and accordingly, will be assuming some additional costs on that relative to the assessments. So this just shows the limits of where we're going to place. The blue represents the water main, the green is the sanitary sewer, the red is the storm sewer. This is the southern part of the project with Willow on the left-hand side of the screen. So you can see we're not doing much on the south end there in terms of utilities. This is the downtown area. We're basically looking at replacement pretty much throughout that two block stretch in the downtown area. Service laterals, this is important. We're going to replace both the sewer and water service laterals up to the property line. And what that means downtown is generally to the face of the outside of the foundation wall, not through the foundation wall. The outside of your building is for all practical purposes the edge of the property, so we'll be replacing them up to that point. South of Frazee Street, generally the back of the sidewalk is the property line, so we'll be replacing them up to that point. I strongly encourage the owners, particularly in the downtown section, to at least evaluate your service laterals, get a plumber in there to find out what kind of condition they're in as they're going through those walls. If it was me and there's any question to the integrity of those, now is the time to get that replacement all the way through the wall. It'd be far, far cheaper to do it now than it will be 5-10 years from now. If you have to make this replacement after the project's all done, in addition to just replacing a 2-foot chunk of pipe, you'll be paying probably for sidewalk restoration, curb, and possibly street. And the pipe replacement will be the cheap part of the project at that point. So if you're interested in that, we've sent letters out in the past. We'll do a coordinated effort where we can replace that at the same time that we're doing the service lateral. You just need to have a private plumber on site to make that last connection through the wall, and then you're in good shape. So generally, we'll be doing 1-inch water laterals and 4-inch sewer laterals, or at least matching what's there. There's a few properties that have fire protection systems and things like that, and those will be put in like a 6-inch service into. If you have a property that you want a larger service lateral brought in for whatever reason, you have plans to expand and you think you're going to have a fire suppression system in there, now's the time to get a bigger lateral brought in, like a 6-inch lateral. So, temporary water, we'll have all the water mains out of service during this. There'll be a temporary water system that'll be hooked up to your property to provide water throughout. It should be just brief interruptions. Storm sewer, if you remember, I said really the storm sewer is not in all that bad a condition. Unfortunately, it's the shallowest utility. It's above everything else. So to get to the sewer and the water, the storm sewer basically has to come out. We have to redo catch basins to match the new street widths and things like that. So basically, we'll be replacing all of the storm sewer. We have to extend some up to some mid-block crossing nodes. We're also going to bring storm sewer further up Washington from Willow. Because right now, all of the water from Frazee basically has to go all the way down Washington to Willow. Causes some surcharging issues there, so we want to try to pick that water up a little further north. We'll also be looking at sump pump connections down on the southern part of Washington. There's a lot of folks that have basements and groundwater in that area, and we'll try to facilitate ways to connect those sumps to the storm sewer. Onto the street. I wanted to point out that the street improvements in this project is one of the unique parts of the project, I guess. We're doing a lot more than just a standard street replacement. We're trying to enhance that, particularly the downtown area, but even moving south on Washington. And a lot of those ideas and concepts came out of the RGD business corridors redevelopment plan. And so we're trying to follow that to some degree. The street, what we're proposing is We're going to bid a concrete surface. We're also going to bid a bituminous surface as an alternate. There's some questions whether or not what we'll go with there between the county and the city, and we'll work that out when we take bids. We're going to look at a 44-foot wide street throughout the entire project, which is slightly narrower. It's about 3 feet narrower in the downtown area. That's going to gain us a little bit more sidewalk space, and it's about 6 feet narrower down south of Willow. And that will free up some space to do a turf boulevard on the southern half of the project south of Willow. 44 feet is the standard width that we do for on-street parking with 2 lanes of traffic, so it's not that anything's being done that we don't do anywhere else. That's the standard width street that we typically use. Sidewalk is all going to be replaced in the downtown. It'll be face-to-face a building, and as you go south of the project, the sidewalk will be replaced as well. Some of the streetscape sort of items, nodes, that was a item that we've spent a lot of time talking about, the corner nodes, the bump outs as people call them. We're going to do those on some of the corners and intersections, and then also at some mid-block points to just enhance the crossing of pedestrian traffic. So we'll do intersection nodes downtown. There's going to be some half nodes in some areas at some key turning areas to help larger vehicles still be able to turn in some key locations. I will say that large semis will not be able to make right-hand turns at every location downtown, but we've set it up that they can still be able to circulate around kind of the outside edge of the downtown area, or they'll be able to go straight or take lefts. It's just going to be a kind of a change in habit. We'll probably end up providing some signage to help establish truck routes, particularly as the project's new, until everybody kind of learns the pattern. Looking at a crossing node near Holy Rosary School, between Holy Rosary and the assisted living area, just south of the hospital. There's a crosswalk there, and that seems to make some sense. We're not going into the Willow Street intersection. We're going to stop the project just short of Willow Street for a number of reasons, but so there's not going to be any nodes or anything there at this time. Colored and textured concrete in the downtown area. We're going to do a 3-foot ribbon behind the sidewalk that'll be colored and stamped, and in the node areas, real similar to what was done in the North Washington area or Veterans Memorial Parkway area. So this is a picture, I guess, of the southern half of the project, just to give you kind of an idea. The green's representing a turf boulevard. Right now, if everybody recalls, it's concrete from edge of right-of-way to edge right-of-way. It's sidewalk, street, sidewalk. And the idea is to get about a 4-foot wide turf boulevard in there, just to soften up the look, enhance it a little bit. We'll put trees and things like that in there. And then this is the downtown. I won't spend a lot of time on that because I think everybody's heard that. A few other things I mentioned, we'll be doing trees in the downtown area. They'll be in the colored stamped ribbon behind the curb, in the nodes, and then we'll also be putting them in the Turf Boulevard area going south of Frazee. There'll be an automated irrigation system throughout to make sure that both the grass and the trees remain healthy, looking good. We have dropped planters from the project, like I talked about early, and elected that just doesn't seem to fit, and there's some difficulties with that as well. So be some benches and bike racks and trash receptacles at various locations throughout the project. Decorative lighting, similar to what's on North Washington. The only difference being these are going to be LED luminaries now, and that's kind of become the standard what the city's gone to. There'll be supports for banners and 110-volt receptacles up at the banner height for the Christmas decorations, so nothing's changing there. We're also going to at least include provisions for the future to be able to add 110 and 220-volt power in the downtown area. That was something that was talked about. A lot of the downtown groups and some of the volunteer groups that have festivities and things down there would really like to see power down there for the street fair, crazy days, things like that. Maybe to be able to put Christmas lights on the trees once they get a little larger. That's right now been dropped out of the scope, but we'll put conduits in and things like that, so that could be added at some point in the future. Signals, we're not going to do anything. We've also eliminated that from the project. The signals are adequate. We're gonna do a few things so that we set ourselves up for future upgrades, which could be LED signal heads, accessible pedestrian signals, interconnecting some of the signals, loop detectors, and things like that. Basements. The project's gonna also include, there's some basements that encroach or extend out underneath the existing sidewalk on the 800 block. And we've worked with those property owners, we've reached agreement with them, and we're going to remove those portions of extending basements that are underneath the sidewalk. That work will begin before anything else. That would start very early in the spring of 2015. Construction, staging, and phasing. We have bid the project a couple different times in a couple different ways, and we're backing off to some degree on some of the staging and phasing requirements that we were imposing on the contractor during the first couple of bids. We believe that at least contributed to some of the elevated costs. So by and large, we're splitting this project up into two major phases. One will be the downtown area, basically north of Frazee Street to Highway 10, with the aim of getting in there as early as Mother Nature will allow us and getting out of there prior to the 4th of July. And then we would have the Frazee intersection would be an option to complete either after phase 1 or after phase 2. Phase 2 would be the southern half of the project from Frazee to Willow. That would very likely start sometime in July and run until it's complete, probably the early part of fall. So this is just a depiction again of the two different phases. You've got the green part in the middle, which is Frazee Street. The point being, we don't necessarily care when that gets done, other than it needs to get done quickly. And it can either be done between the phases or at the very end. But that's a fairly critical intersection that we try to leave open as long as we can. Construction accessibility, we work very hard with the downtown group to make sure that we maintain accessibility to all the businesses to the extent possible. Yes, it's definitely construction, and it's not without its impacts. That said, I think we've done a very good job of trying to minimize those impacts to the extent possible. We'll have signage for parking, directing people to the parking lots, as Washington won't be open. We'll have sign detours that'll change depending on where we're at in the phase of work. We'll have sort of generic signs trying to point people to general areas of the downtown or places on Washington, but we're not doing business-specific signs. And there's been requests for that. The problem is with that, you start doing one, basically need to do everybody, and pretty soon a driver is looking at a billboard of names and trying to figure out where they need to go, and it's really not very effective. So we'll maintain access at Frazee Street during most of the work. Boardwalks will be used in the downtown area. As soon as the sidewalk is removed, a boardwalk has to go up within so many hours of that being removed. So everybody will be able to move around, at least walk around in the downtown area. The Chamber's doing a very good job working with a group of downtown people to put together a promotional and marketing campaign that'll coincide with this construction. Contract considerations, we're going to try to minimize, like I said, the restrictions on the contractor to the extent possible. We'll spec out the real critical items in terms of you can't block somebody's access for more than a couple of hours. There's certain dates that'll be critical and different milestones. We'll have provisions for nighttime work to help speed up the project. But by and large, we want to let the contractor determine the details of how they want to get it done. We'll tell them what they can't do, but let them come up with their game plan. And each contractor is a little bit different in how they would like to attack the work, so we're best not to handcuff them too much. The council and the county board both have indicated that they'd like to see offer an incentive for particularly the downtown area for early completion. The number we've talked about to date has been $50,000. We'll likely stage that over days leading up to the 4th of July, and so that's quite a carrot for a contractor to try to get in and get out, so we don't drag over that 4th of July weekend. And then on the backside of that would be penalties if they don't hit the milestones in completion. So Schedule. I said, we did the report in September, that's been approved. Here we are this evening for public hearing. We would do the design this winter, trying to get the bids out early part of February, possibly even in January if things go well, so that we have bids in hand and are ready to award a contract early this spring. It's advantageous typically to bid these projects in the winter when contractors are hungry for work and looking for stuff, so that's what we're aiming for. Construction then would start as soon as it possibly can in May. Depending on the year, it could be April, and if you go back to last summer, it'll be June. So once the construction's all over, we'd be back here in just about a year with an assessment hearing. That should actually say November of 2015. And depending on how things get all ironed out, there may be some real minor final cleanup work in June of 16. I don't think we're going to see that, but it's possible. Project costs. I'm not going to run through this line by line. It's all of the improvements we talked about. Right now, all said and done, all the project costs, including the foundation corrections and lighting and sewer and water and street and traffic signal stuff, we're looking at a project cost of about $5.7 million. And the financing on this one is a little bit more complicated than a typical project. We have funds coming in from the city, the county, and then also special assessments to the benefited adjacent property owners. And those will get split up in accordance with the city assessment policy. I'm going to zip through this because you've probably all heard this in the previous hearing, but sewer and water, they're assessed to the property owners at 75% of the standard cost. And I emphasize standard because there's some oversized water mains and so forth. We don't assess for those larger mains, it's just the basic size mains, a 6-inch water main, 8-inch sewer. The city picks up the other 25%, along with looping and oversizing and some other miscellaneous costs. The city will end up assuming a little bit more of the cost on the 800 block because that water main was put in and hasn't really reached its full service life yet according to our policies, so there'll be some prorates that'll happen there. Service laterals are assessed at 100% to the property owner. Street is assessed to the property owner at 50% of the standard basic street. Standard street being 36-foot wide, 5-ton design, bituminous surface. So you're not assessed for all the upgrades and things like that, wider, heavier, things of that nature. The city and the county then will assume the remaining costs, so ends up being more than 50% in all the oversizing. Sidewalk, the city and the county are paying for that. Streetscapes are paid 100% by the city. Storm sewers paid 100% by the city and the county, primarily the county. Lighting is picked up by the city and the county. So all that boils down into this table here. You can see that under the middle column there, it says city share. The city's picking up all the utility, the sewer and the water. Then the county picks up all the storm sewer generally. The street, $607,000 is picked up by the city and assessments, and $2 million is paid by the county. The sidewalk, the city's picking up about $94,000 of that, and that just represents some of the beautification upgrades, the colored ribbon and things like that. The county's picking up about $550,000. We've got some traffic signal stuff that gets split between the county and city. And the city is also picking up all of the streetscapes, about $250,000 worth. And then there's some other minor stuff with electrical and some lighting elements. The county participates on that to a large degree at $220,000, city at $60,000, and some foundation corrections that are split between the city and county. So out of the $5.7 million, the city's picking up about $2.4 million, and 3.3 is going to the county. So the next thing, going back to what I talked about earlier, we have the city share. A portion of that city share gets assessed to the benefited property owners. And based on the assessment policy, this is how it shakes out. The city, about 70% of the sewer cost is assessed, 93 or most of the sanitary sewer service. Water main ends up being about 50% being assessed, and that's largely because the city picks up more for oversizing on this project. None of the hydrants, service laterals are almost all assessed. Storm sewer, that's a county cost. The street, $550,000, or about 21% of the overall street cost is being assessed. The rest of it's picked up either by the city or by the county. So let's go down the line. About $1.4 million of the 5.7 will be assessed to the benefited properties. So let me back up. Now we're going to get into that 1.4 million. How is that then spread out through the assessments? It's distributed in accordance with our special assessment policy. We try to pull that through all the projects that we do, so we keep things as consistent and equitable across town as we do different projects. So we take the cost, we divide them by the assessable units or the frontage to determine a rate. Rectangular lots, which is all I'm going to cover here, because everybody pretty much has a rectangular lot. It's basically the footage is a dimension of the width of your lot. There are some lots that are abutting two parallel streets. If they're less than 150 feet residential or 200 feet commercial, they're only assessed for one street only. If they're greater than that, they can be assessed for improvements on parallel streets. Sewer and water get assessed basically on the short side of your lot, which generally speaking will be the one facing Washington Avenue. You're only assessed if you're served on the improvement or a main that is replaced. Services are assessed each. So this is the end result. We have sanitary sewer being assessed at about $45.70 a foot. Sewer services are about $3,400 each. Water main, it's about $56 a foot. Water service for residential, which would be like a 1 or 2 inch service, those are about $3,600 each. Commercial water service, which would be typically a 6 inch service, those are $6,200 each. And then the street is being assessed at about $113 per foot. So there's some example assessments with a residential water service down there. A 25-foot lot would be looking at about $12,000. A 50-foot lot is just short of $18,000, and a 100-foot lot is looking at $28,000. I'm out of breath.
Somebody want to hit the lights, please? Anybody doze off?
Nobody on this side of it.
Is there anyone in the audience that has questions? Again, we'll take questions first, and then I'll give you an opportunity to make comments about the project afterwards. Any questions that you'd like John to clarify, the city staff? Okay, hearing none, is there anyone that wants to make any comments about the project? Okay, good.
Well, yeah,
Go ahead.
I got a ton of questions, I guess.
Okay, questions or comments?
Probably, I don't know what the difference is, now, any comments?
Oh, that's fine,
You
we're,
just say you're gonna stop, I would like to add some comments, I guess, if that's okay.
fire away.
Name and address, please.
Yeah, for our records, could we get you to state your name and address? Thank you.
This is Scott Sonstegard, I'm the owner of Becker Pet and Garden on 1008 Washington Avenue, which is right next to the library. One, I guess just a couple one comment that John made is that there wasn't gonna be any individual signage for the businesses. Well, I just wanna show you a picture here on my cell phone. I took pictures of the signage down in Alexandria. Of course, this was a state road, not a county road. And there's signage, there's a picture of the signs all over town. They had signage with the names of the businesses on there. So I would think this would help. I mean, you don't have to have every business, but at least people know what your business is next to or whatever. So some of the businesses, you'd say, okay, well, I know that the business I'm going to is right next to J.C. Penney's or right next to Norby. So some of those signage, maybe like that, would help direct people and get them around downtown. Also, you know, I've gone to about every meeting that John has hosted, and Chamber of Commerce has hosted about the whole construction project. This has been going on now for a couple of years. I think I'm pretty well versed in what some of the discussion has been, so we have discussed a lot about the signage, and I know a couple of us, Don Olson and I have talked about the signage and gone over this quite a bit in our committee meetings, so we are very concerned about making sure that our customers can get to our stores so they don't start with different shopping patterns going elsewhere. We'd rather have them shopping at our businesses, so I'm very concerned about that. The second thing that really concerns me is the nodes, and John and I have spoken about the nodes too, especially the nodes on the corner of Frazee Street when you're coming up north on Washington and turning right. There's a lot of people that are making deliveries not only to Becker Pet and Garden, but also deliveries down to Holy Rosary and to the hospital and the clinics, and they have a lot of large trucks. They come up that street coming north on Washington, and at Frazee, they take a right and go over to the Holiday gas station, take a left and go out that way. It seems to be, that's their traffic pattern versus going straight north all the way up to Highway 10, because it gets more congested and it's harder for them to get through there. So I think that would be a consideration. I don't know if they were talking about putting nodes on that intersection or not, but I would have some concerns if they were going to put nodes on that intersection. So that was another comment I had. I know, just speaking for our committee group at the Chamber, we've been talking about it. Not only is the 4th of July really important for deadlines and timing, but also, of course, the water carnival and the parade and all that. That's a crucial time. The road has to be open for that, I would think. So that's almost more important than the 4th of July, I would think, is the water carnival. And then there's quite a bit of traffic up and down Main Street during Wee Fest too. So those are key points in time that we've been really concerned with as our downtown merchants. Want to make sure that there is consideration for the traffic flow and to get the customers downtown. And I guess I have just another comment. I guess as our group spoke and we talked and met, we'd really like the downtown roads, to look really nice, to be cosmetic appealing. Boy, the people up at Detroit Mountain have done a phenomenal job with that facility and the way they put it together. It looks really nice, and a lot of families and parents are going to be coming to Detroit Lakes and dropping their kids off maybe up at the mountain and then coming back down on 34. I want them to look down Washington. I want it to be inviting, so they look down the street, head down the road, and come to our stores and shop at our great businesses we got at the mall, Norby's, JCPenney's, Lake Sports, Becker Pet and Garden. We want to be able to have people feel like they can come down and shop when their kids are out there using the mountain, skiing, biking, whatever they're doing up there. We want to make the downtown area nice and inviting. And the same with continuing on the road, not only going south down there, past Bruce's business, but further down to Westlake Drive. I think that needs to be something we should talk about and consider too, is improving that road and making that look really nice. And I went to the meeting with the county commissioners here last month, and that was a big talk about making the road go further. I think the county had questions or concerns about expanding the project because they said it wasn't in their quote-unquote budget to do that. But I think that's something that we'd really like to see, is a road looking very nice all the way down from Highway 10 now, all the way down through Westlake Drive, down to where the Legion is. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Perfect. Anybody else? Come on up. And we need you to please introduce yourself and your address for the record.
My name is Sharon Johnson, and I am at 1152 Washington Avenue. And I have styles on, recognized styles on Willow. Mine is Sharon style. And I'm really concerned about the timing here. And parking. We have none. And now, we're going to start on our end, July 15th or so, or anyway, July to November, right? It's my whole business season. And where are my customers going to park? Is there going to be, there has to be something somewhere. I don't know what we're going to do for all of us, but I have customers that come every half hour, a lot of in and out. And there's like nothing. So with Washington Avenue, I'm not going to have that. Is there any place on Willow where we can find to make a parking lot? I just don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of locked in there. Styles on Willow behind me has a parking lot, and they have access from Willow. I don't.
Okay.
I have the same concern, I just have the road review.
Yeah, she's got Jonathan.
Would
The
it be-
same thing. Where are our customers gonna park? How are they gonna get to our business? And you're taking away my whole summer. And there's 3 of us stylists in there, and we're busy. So,
Would it make some sense to maybe have John and Bob meet with both of you and brainstorm a little bit about what could be done there? I mean,
I'd love to see a long-term discussion about parking down on our end, because we're getting busier and busier down there. And we just lost another one right in front of Red Willow, because people need to make a right-hand turn, and we need a little more for them to turn. I don't understand that, but we lost one this summer that they decided was not a parking spot, so. This is huge, and it's my whole season. I have 3 stylists in there. I don't know how many are in yours, but this is a hardship.
we'll have Bob and John get a hold of you. Gloria, why don't you go back and get both their address and
Thank
phone
you.
numbers and stuff, okay? If you would. Will you get the
I
other
can
gal
get
too?
Janet. I got her.
I got him. Anybody else that would like to make a comment about the project? Okay, hearing no more comments, that public hearing is closed, and I would entertain a motion by the council.
I've got a question for John about, what was the final cost for the 100-foot lot, that estimate? I had the 25 and 50 down, I didn't get the 100-foot written down.
100 foot is 28,510.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion by the council?
Jamie?
Jamie?
Just a comment to thank those people who stepped up and made those comments, and even though we are going to put this to a vote, I think we certainly will consider those and try to make some accommodations.
Good point. John?
Mayor, could I just add, I would anticipate moving ahead here, that we'll probably have some more input meetings moving ahead. We did it with the downtown group several times, and obviously we'll try to engage everybody now that we have a little bit of a larger project, but we'll try to set some of that stuff up here moving ahead.
Okay. I don't think we had a motion yet. Or did you move, or are you
The same-
gonna move?
Well, I moved the same time Ron put his hand.
Oh, okay, so we've got a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded to adopt a resolution What is our resolution here? Oh, we want to adopt a resolution ordering the street and utility improvements and preparing plans and specs for the reconstruction of Washington Avenue from Highway 10 to Willow Street, right? Okay, further discussion on the motion? Bob?
Mr. Mayor, for everybody's information, before the council would go ahead with the project, there will be another meeting, and they will have the plans and specifications will be approved before they go out to bid. So there is some opportunity to discuss further the issues that you brought up tonight.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, that motion is carried. At this time, I'll call to order a public hearing to give consideration of the granting of club on sale Sunday and intoxicating liquor licenses for the various clubs in Detroit Lakes. Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions or wishes to make any comments regarding granting club on sale Sunday licenses to the American Legion, the VFW, et cetera, the Eagles? Anyone? Hearing none, that public hearing is closed. And is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to grant the club on sale Sunday and intoxicating liquor licenses of the American Legion, John Bridges, Post 15, Jess Amundson, Post 1676 VFW, and Fraternal Order of the Eagles. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion's carried. At this time, I'll call to order a public hearing to give consideration to granting on-sale wine licenses to the Chinese Dragon and La Barista for 2015. Is there anyone in the audience with questions or comments about granting those two on-sale wine licenses? Hearing none, that public hearing is closed, and I would entertain a motion. Motion's been made and seconded to grant on-sale wine licenses to the Chinese Dragon and La Barista for 2015. Discussion by the council. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion is carried. And the final public hearing is to give consideration to changing the liquor license fees for 2015. Is there any need, Bob, to make any type of presentation regarding these fees at this time?
I don't think so. I was
Unless
not
somebody in the
contacted
audience-
by anybody.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to have any questions or that has any questions or wishes to make a comment regarding the changes to the liquor license fees for 2015? Hearing none, that public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
Motion. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt the proposed changes to the liquor license fees for 2015 and amend Section 210 of the City Code, changing the liquor license fees for 2015. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, that motion is carried. I know Gundy's here regarding 6B, so without objection by the council, I would turn it over to Chairman Auni for item 6B.
Okay, and with that, we're offering consideration of accepting the preliminary engineering report for improvements to Peter Street and Fortune Avenue and setting a construction hearing for the project at our January council meeting. This would also include a resolution authorizing Larry Remen to apply for a state grant to possibly help in the funding for said project. And I would make a motion to approve that motion.
Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded to accept the preliminary engineering report for the Peter Street and Fortune Avenue projects, and also to authorize the application for a state grant on the project. Mike or anyone in the audience have questions or comments you'd like to make about the project or any of the city staff? Is there anything we need to bring up?
I have a few comments, if that's okay.
Yep.
Mike Henderson, Schultz Garage, 1110 Randolph Road. Most everyone was here at the city planning meeting, but I'll make it brief. Peter Street is being offered to be paved by BTD. Schultz Garage has been there 55 years. It has been gravel the whole time. Now there's a $21,500 assessment that's on the books for Schultz Garage. We would like to have you guys weigh the benefit that we may or may not be getting from that, as we feel that that's more for BTD's benefit. I brought a little picture here. We're gonna be taking 28 feet of buildings off the land between us and the sandbar, and we're gonna reroute our buses out that way so we don't have to compete with BTD traffic. So even though that's gonna be paved and nice and all that stuff, the benefit we feel is for BTD, our buses are gonna go the other way on the, let's say, on the shifts that BTD is, which is 7 and 3 o'clock. So we appreciate John's help in negotiating with BTD, getting them down, getting our costs down, but 21.5 is a tough pill to swallow for us. So when you guys negotiate that, and just think of us. I'm not here, Fred Garnes isn't here, but I know he might be out of town, but he would be feeling, I'm sure, the same way. So with that, do you guys have any questions?
Any questions for Mike? Comments? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to make any comments about the project? If not, we have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any further discussion by the council?
I've got a comment on it. We did have a good meeting today about this project, and I think pretty much so. This street has virtually been a dead-end street for all these years, and it's a street that will go only to one place, and that's the new parking lot for BTD. And I think the cost is $177,000 total, plus what the lights will be. And I think it's unfair that the businesses like Fred Garnes and Schultz Garage would have to even, it was at 44,000, it's down to 21,000, but I even think that amount is too high because they're never really gonna benefit out of that. There's one person's gonna benefit, and that's BTD, because it virtually was a lot of land, and if they didn't open up that street, you'd have no access to it. And they didn't wanna use the street off the front of theirs because they don't wanna have the employees' cars go where their truck loading docks are. So they decided to open up, Peter Street, but I really think it's a fairness issue of putting the cost of this to the people that are really gonna have the most benefit, and that is the BTD. And I want to be fair to everybody, but at this point, and we're gonna discuss it, but I don't think it's fair to the Schultz Garage or Fred Garns for the cost, even though it's reduced to 21. I don't even think it's that much, and I don't think it's fair to the taxpayers that we have to pay 50% of that. I know we do that for most street projects, but this is a street that goes to one place, and that's from Peter Street right up to the parking lot, and no other, you use that for another reason but going to that parking lot. So I think we gotta look at it as a fairness issue. I appreciate having BTD in town, but at the same time, I think it's a fairness issue of doing the right thing for their neighbors and also the taxpayers at Detroit Lakes. I think we've gotta be fair on this issue, and I hope we have a good discussion to bring the cost down on this for everybody, and the rightful cost should go to BTD, because they're the ones that are putting in this lot and opening up that street.
Thanks, Ron. Dave, did you
I
have something
was
else?
just going to say that this motion is simply to accept the preliminary engineering report and look for assistance in financing options. So, that, various things involved with costs and so forth will be addressed at the construction hearing in January.
I know Pam's got something, and Bruce, did you have something?
Well, no, I would probably second what Dave said. I agree with Mr. Zeman about the benefit to the property owners there, so that, I think, obviously we can look at that. But if we can get a grant, and I suggested earlier today that maybe the development authority should have a role here, I'd like them to take a look at that too. And I do think, whether we think it's for the benefit of BTD or not, at least acknowledge that they are an important part of our community. I know you said that, Ron, and so I think we need to do what we can to make the project work too.
Thanks,
I just
Bruce.
noticed today in the building reports that came by, the expansion, the $5 million expansion, they're paying $31,000 for their building permit. I got no idea what their cost is for the taxes, but I mean, you gotta give people services if you wanna take their taxes from them. So it's all part of what we do it for the downtown, we do it for all over, y'all can fight about it all you want, but good God, I mean, that's just part of what you do. You gotta give people streets and roads if you're gonna get people here and want to expand your community.
Pam?
The discussion at the Finance Committee, I was asked to look at what the potential tax implication is and the tax capacity implication would be for the city. On a $5 million commercial project like that, the tax capacity for the city would go up almost $100,000, so their taxes annually would be in excess of $42,000.
Okay, well, Mike, it sounds like you've got some support for taking a good look at things as we move ahead with this deal. So we're not making the decision tonight on the money. So.
Appreciate it.
Okay, any other comments?
I want it to be known that I agree with Mr. Zeman. We want to be fair to the people that have had businesses in this area for a long time, and it's not really fair to tax them without at least more input.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion is carried. Is there anyone else in the audience that has an item? We had to go through those public hearings at the beginning because that's the law, so it wasn't just to put you all to sleep.
Item 6E.
Item 6E, without objection of the council, we'll move to item 6E. And we've got Dave
Harmon.
Dave Harmon's here from the DLCCC Summer Rec Program and wants to give us an update. Dave?
Yeah, I'm just here to do an update. I was asked to come about the summer programs. I'm Dave Harmon. I'm the Youth and Adult Sports Director at Detroit Lakes Community and Cultural Center. And during the summer, we run basically a couple of huge programs. One of them is you got like a freestanding sheet that's in there that breaks down our baseball and our softball programs that we do out at Snappy Park. As you see, our baseball and girls softball program is huge. We start at the beginning of June and we go until the end of July. And there's about 250 kids that participate in that program. And it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So it's basically all summer long. Also, as you see on that sheet, we have 6 softball tournaments during the summer. And they start at the weekends in July and we run all the way through to the middle of August. And that accumulates about 110 teams that come through. And then on the bottom, it's our adult softball leagues, and they're run on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursday nights. And as you see there, we have a total of 34 teams. What I can tell you about Snappy Park is that the people that come in, adults in the community, people from out of town, they absolutely think our facility is fantastic. And kudos to the city for the way they keep it up and everything else. These numbers, when you look at the numbers throughout the state of Minnesota and the Midwest, these are big numbers. For the softball league and softball tournaments, softball is starting to be a dying sport, and for whatever reason, it's increasing in our town. We've had teams that are coming from other cities to play just because of the way they like our park and the way we do things here. So that's kind of a rundown of the first thing that we do during the summer. Snappy Park gets a lot of usage, and it is just a great facility. The other program that we run in town is our summer rec program. From what I can gather, I think it's probably the oldest continuous program in Detroit Lakes. I am not a Detroit Lakes native, but over 50 years they've been running this program. It's a free program for the kids. They run it from 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. It's fully staffed with 4 staff members. And it's for the kids just to come down, and what they do, they'll have organized games, arts and crafts, just a variety of things that the staff will do with the kids. Once again, they can come and go as they please. But it is one of the most unique things that I've been involved with kids for 30 plus years, and I've never seen a program like this that a city has taken hold of something like this for their kids. In the middle of the program, you'll see it will give you kind of an outline of the type of participant that this program has. In the morning throughout the summer, we had close to 750 kids that came to the program. And then in the evenings or afternoon from 1 to 4, there was about, I think the number was 1,300 plus. So as you see, we do things with touches. And so this program alone is really touching about 2,100 kids. So it is a great, great program that we run in our community. And I think that the parents, the comments that we've had from the parents in the community, they just absolutely love it. So that's kind of a quick review of everything. I am kind of a picture person, and so if you believe in activities and smiles on kids and stuff like that, I think you'll enjoy looking through the pamphlets. So.
Thanks, Dave. Say, I didn't get one of these. Ron just gave me his, but is there anyone else in the council that didn't get? Okay.
That was for you, Ron. I wanted to public works.
That's what happened. Okay. Any questions for Dave or comments, Bruce?
Well, comment. You mentioned how long the program's running. I don't want to speak for maybe anybody else in the council, but some of us actually were in the program, had children in the program, and now have grandkids in the program, so it's been around a long time. The question, though, Dave, is you still running that 10 weeks?
Yeah, it goes 10 weeks, and what we did is because of the way the college kids, we kind of run into that August, and then the staff is always college kids, and they start taking off. So we try to we added the last couple of years another week from 1 to 4 that the kids came, and I believe it was like another 120 kids that came during that time. Once it gets toward the end of August, it gets awfully hard to staff. And that's what
So a comment to you, because it's a great program, you're right, it's a fantastic program. I think the DLCCC has done a great job of taking it over. It was done a few years ago, Brad, I don't know how many years ago now, but you guys are doing a great job at it. But I want to put in a little plug here, because this happened, back about 10 years ago now. The city was running the program, and when we had some budget cuts from the state, we knocked that program down to 8 weeks, which to me was just an awful thing, because as you know, how many kids go through there, and to only have them there for 2 months rather than 10 weeks, I think was a shame. And so at that time, I'm kind of giving some credit here to the golf course, the country club. They stepped up, and we negotiated a fee arrangement, so they are kicking money into our general fund to help keep that open. So that's kudos to them, and kudos to the DLCC, and obviously our city staff for helping make this run as it does.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Dave. Anything else for Dave? We all appreciate it, Dave. Thanks for coming. Brad, do you want to
comment? In June is hard enough, because they did add that extra week the last 2 years, but they had trouble staffing it. The afternoons, so it's really going about 10 and a half weeks, or they would call other weeks out. And we had been in discussion with Kim Vetcher before Dave come on, and Dave will look at. They have some other ideas of how to maybe expand that, and also both genders. It's just not all balls and fields and stuff too. They do. That's why I thought this program was really, really nice. It shows the arts and the crafts and the activities of people coming to town, and they're doing a good job promoting that. So I think they've done an excellent job. So thank you, Dave. Thanks.
I think it's kind of neat that softball players want to come here, and it's declining elsewhere. It kind of shows that we're a destination place, so that's a neat thing to hear. So thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the audience that has? Yes, sir. Come on up. How are you?
Good, thank you. Council, I am Bruce O'Mang from the Zakia Properties, which we have a store and some properties in town, but tonight I'm talking with you for our property on 1302 Washington, where I had met with the planning committee to put the outside refrigeration unit to the north side of our building.
What number is it?
Everybody, it's 5A.
Bruce, why don't we do this? If you could just bear with me 1 second. I'll introduce, or have Chairman Suki introduce what the item is and explain it a little bit to the council, and then you can continue with your...
Sure, thank you.
So Madeline, without objection, we'll go to item 5A.
5A is consideration to a variance request to exceed the 35% impervious requirement and to allow a 5-foot side yard setback for construction of an outdoor cooler attached to a commercial building at 1302 Washington Avenue, which Bruce has told us is actually Subway, for those of you that don't know what the digits are on Washington Avenue. Larry, why don't you go through what the Planning Commission looked at this too and made some recommendations, so.
There's a resolution in the packet for this particular item. It lists 5 conclusions that we approved to make by law and notice of variance. First, the variance is in harmony with the purpose and intent of the ordinance, as it will allow a side yard variance without impairing the sight lines at the intersection. 2, the variance is consistent with the comprehensive plan, as it will allow commercial use in a district zoned for commercial uses. 3, the proposal will put the property to use in a reasonable manner, as it will allow a side yard setback variance for a cooler addition to a commercial building. 4, the circumstances are unique to the property, and there is no other practical location for the proposed cooler. And 5, the variance will maintain the essential character of the locality, as it is a small addition to an existing commercial building. Planning Commission reviewed this, and basically we're allowing a 5-foot side yard setback for construction of an 8 by 16-foot cooler, and they will reduce their impervious surface coverage from 93% to 91%, but they will also be putting in some pervious pavers or pervious material in the driveway, and they will be draining their roof and other stormwater drainage into that area. The Planning Commission recommended the following 6 conditions for this project. First, that the project be constructed as shown on the approved site plan. 2, that the owners replace 1,000 square feet of parking lot with pervious pavers with a perforated drain pipe placed beneath the pavers and a downspout from the building to be moved to discharge water into the perforated drain pipe. 3, that the owners obtain a Pelican River Watershed District permit. 4, that the owners cover the sides of the coolers with decorative panels. 5, that the owners remove 8 by 12 feet of pavement in the northwest corner of their parking lot. And 6, that the owners screen their dumpsters and also plant trees along the dumpster area and coolers. And with that, the planning commission recommends approval.
Should we get a motion on the table, then we can
Yes,
listen to Bruce?
And the CDC recommends that we grant this variance. And I make a motion.
With those conditions?
Yes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to grant a variance to 1302 Washington Avenue.
Same here.
Subject,
It's an important part, but he needs to change his tape.
okay. Where were we at? Do we had a motion?
We have a motion and a second.
We had a motion, a second. Further discussion by the council, otherwise we'll have Bruce. Are you good with all this stuff, Bruce, or do you have things that you have concerns with?
No, actually, I'm the one that presented some of the things in conjunction to putting the coolers. I met with Tara Getter so that we could lower the impervious area, and because we're in a 1,000-foot area. So Tara and she had a new associate with her, and we went in an area that we could break out that concrete, going into a cobblestone or whatever it is that they want us to meet the area. And then I talked with Bruce involved, and he had very good ideas with some trees that we could plant in there, and I have no problem with following those guidelines.
So not only are you good with everything, but you were part of the process?
Absolutely.
Well, that's pretty responsible, thank you. We
Yeah,
appreciate that.
I want to thank Mr. Romanek too. Yeah, I did visit with him, and he's very receptive. I mean, I think that's great. You know, we're doing all this stuff along Washington Avenue. We're talking about aesthetics. We've got a sign outside our city that says Tree City, so he was very receptive to doing some of those things, and I think that's great. And as these things come up in the future, I know the planning commission is looking at that. Any little thing we can do helps.
Thanks, Bruce. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, the motion is carried. Anyone else in the audience that has, not much left of the audience, but otherwise, we'll move back to the Community Development Committee agenda. Madeline?
Item B, consideration to a preliminary plat request of Sunnyvale subdivision located in the city's 2-mile extraterritorial area on the west side of Long Lake. And I'll call on Larry.
Basically, you've got a 12-acre plat that's in the city's extraterritorial area on the west side of Long Lake. Planning Commission recommended preliminary approval of this plat, subject to the following 4 conditions. First, that the owners show well and septic locations for each lot. 2, that a 10-foot wide utility easement be included along each lot line. That the owners pay a 6% park dedication fee in the amount of $6,250, and that they provide a 66-foot wide road right-of-way running north and south. Our ideal location was coming directly north of Kelsey Lane, which is in the plat of Brackett Estates, but there's a large accessory building in that location already, and so we have decided that the next best location for that road would be 300 feet to the west. So they have provided that, or will provide that on the final plan.
Before we go any further, I have a direct financial conflict of interest with this matter, so I'm going to turn the meeting over to the Vice Mayor.
Okay, we've got item 5B ahead of us there, and is there any other discussion on this from the audience? I'll turn it over to Madeline for recommendations and motion.
CDC considered this, and we would be willing to make a motion to give preliminary plat approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any discussion on that? So it's consideration to a preliminary plat request for the Sunnyside subdivision located on city's 2-mile extraterritorial area on the west side of Long Lake. We've got a number of the recommendations, and we've got a motion in a second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
Item C, consideration to the approval of an engineering report from Clark Gable Cluster relative to a variance in the 24-358 Clark Gable Road. This is one that we've been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and the cluster provided an engineering report, which we had our city engineer review, and the CDC committee, after John's recommendation, is certainly willing to grant approval of that engineering report.
Second.
That's what we need to have done, and if you have any questions about John's report, I will let you answer those rather than try to steal this thunder.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to grant approval of an engineering report for Clark Gable Cluster relative to a variance at 24-358 Clark Gable Road. So all we're doing in this motion, Madeline, is approving the engineering report, correct?
That's correct.
Discussion on the motion?
I have a question.
Go ahead,
So
Jill.
going forward, every time one of these guys wants to build in there, they gotta come in for variance? Every one of them, or this gives them all the variance procedure to come in and build up to that?
No, they all have to come in for the, as I understand, Larry, right? They'll have to come in. Yep. And actually, we're trying to encourage them to go through the cluster to do that.
Go through the association.
Yes.
Okay.
Right now, they don't really have any, they have no impervious surface left to grant to anybody without making some major change.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion's carried.
The last item on CDC's agenda tonight is consideration to a resolution setting a hearing on a proposed vacation of a public road right-of-way at 126 Shorewood Drive. And this one I will call on Larry to go through with us.
There's a section of Shorewood Drive that has an old road right-of-way between the road and essentially where people's houses are. And as different owners have acquired these properties, they have requested the vacation of that road right-of-way so that they can use the property and build on it. And the city has talked from time to time about taking action to clear that whole thing up in one fell swoop, but that would involve us getting survey work done and paying for that. And if we do it piecemeal as people request it, then we have had them do the survey work, and that seems to be working pretty well for us.
Okay.
So, we need to set a hearing. Do we need to set a date
We set it
for the December meeting? The CDC Community Development Committee moves to set a hearing on a proposed vacation on December 9th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to set a hearing on a proposed vacation of public road at 126 Shorewood Drive for December 9th, 2014. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. Anything else, Madeline?
No, that's it.
We'll finish up the Public Works Committee. Chairman Auni.
Thank you. Item A, Tom from MinDOT is not here tonight, dealing with an update on the 5910 Holmes Street project. Preliminary utility work continues in that area. Things will be slowing down, coming to a halt over the winter season, with construction to get underway heavily again in the spring. I believe Tom will be here next month for a further update. Taking care of B, item C, I'll call on City Engineer John Pratt, tying in with some plans for 2016 along Highway 34.
Certainly, for any of the council that wasn't there, we talked just briefly. MinDOT's going to be making an improvement to Highway 34 in 2016 from Highway 59 out to County Road 143. So basically, it's a portion of 34 running through town. It's going to be a mill and overlay type project with some turning lane type improvements and things of that nature. And at Public Works, we discussed pursuing some opportunities relative to getting a trail or sidewalk in particularly from County Road 143 and the Zitzo addition to Roosevelt, and then from Roosevelt over to Washington Avenue in the Elm Street area with all the new multifamily housing there. So we got some direction, and we'll continue to develop that, and likely Tom and I will present on that next month.
Dave, as long as we have him on his feet.
Yep.
Can we have him?
Moving on to item D.
Yeah, I wish you would have put that on the consent now.
Yeah, it's been a long one.
Just a brief rundown on various projects going on in the city.
Certainly. Quick update. Not much more to say on Washington Avenue, I don't think. The only thing I wanted to bring up there is...
There can't be any more to say.
We have reached an agreement with the 4 properties that have the encroaching basements. Signed agreements are in hand, so with any luck, that matter will be behind us. Highway 10 and 59, I'm not going to report on other than we're working on finishing plans. We'll take that project out to bid here in February. Minnesota and McKinley Avenue, we had our hearing, working with the contractor on processing that final payment. We should have that in another month or so. Upper Sucker Creek, the only thing that's remaining there is a small, the installation of the marsh walk. The contractor had asked to wait until freeze up to do that, to help ease the installation. Safe to say, if you look outside, we're there. So I believe they're gonna start that next week. Multi-use trail, that construction is complete. That's the white trail from McKinley out to the box culvert. We're processing final payment. Dan Street, we're underway with design there. We're kind of, I think, slowing that up just a little bit to see if we're going to be doing improvements on Peter Street, Legion, and how we want to bundle that up. But intent would be to bid something on that later this winter or spring. Airport water main loop, kind of a goofy title. We're not doing any water main looping around the airport this year. That'll start up in the spring. We're working some stuff out with the FAA relative to that. But you probably have noticed some construction, basically between Kmart and MnDOT's office. That work's been ongoing for several weeks, and that's relocation of the lift station and force main and water main. And the bulk of that work will get wrapped up, I think, by next week. We'll at least be online, and the stuff will be out of the way enough for the MnDOT project to start in the spring and then we'll finish up. Legion Road, railroad crossing improvements, that's a project that we'll be working on over the course of the next couple of months. We need to bring a preliminary engineering report to you. Plan on trying to do that at the December meeting. Peter Street improvements already discussed.
Thanks, John. Anything else, David?
Nope, that's all I have, thank you.
Okay. Now we'll move on to the Finance Committee. Chairman Zeman.
Okay, Finance Committee, item 7A, consideration to resolution amending section 210 of the city code relative to the various license and rental fees. All of you have in your packet, under 7A, the fee increases, what the cities do, and now we're doing increases every year based on our costs instead of doing it every 5 or 10 years or so. And this way we keep up with our costs on it. And there are some changes. Pam, do you want to go over the few changes we had, like the street lighting and so forth on it?
Certainly. On page 1, section 405, the street light fee. The street light fee will remain at $1.50 per month. It is not increasing to $1.55, so that $1.55 that's listed on there is an error. And then the other changes are on the last page on the rental fees. The half-day rate until 4 p.m. on the pavilion will be $550. And these are 2016 rental rates for the pavilion because we book out a year in advance, so we have to set 2016 rates. The daily rate will be $1,100. 2 consecutive days will be $2,000. The nonprofit half-day rate until 4 p.m. is $275. The nonprofit daily rate is $550. And the for-profit events with admission is $1,325. There is also a daily heat rate if we have to turn the heat on and open the pavilion up in the wintertime, and that is $110 per day. The other additions that need to be made here are the rental rates for 2015 for the arena. The daily rate for each arena will be $500 with a $600 deposit that's refundable. The nonprofit daily rate is $300, and the half-day rate, which is not nonprofit, is $350 with a $400 deposit that is refundable. And that's it.
Okay, and I should also mention that building permits, cost has gone up approximately 3%. So that's where the increases are, and there's quite a few of them, but it's, like I said, it's all in step with what the cost is to the city, and that's why we had to make these increases.
Ready for a motion?
Committee recommends, and I so move that we go with the new rate sheet that was just presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to amend section 210 of our city code relative to various license and rental fees. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion is carried.
Okay, item 7B is the approval of the 2014 to 2015 season pricing rates on the Detroit Mountain Recreational Area. You have in your packet the fees for this coming year. This is their first year, and looking over the rates, I did get a little booklet in the mailed to me. I suppose other people in town too, from Andy's, and our rates are very similar to what Alexandria's rates are. And looking through this, and like I said, this is their first year at setting the rates, and they'll know more after the first season. But the idea is that these rates are made so that they can keep in the black and keep it going so that it is profitable and it's going in the right direction. And it'll be reviewed after this first season and look at the rates for the following year. But right now, the recommendation is that we do the rates that are presented to you in your packet under 7B, and the committee recommends, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the 2014-2015 season pricing rates for Detroit Mountain Recreational Area. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. Anything else, Ron?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Marty, do you have anything on the Public Safety Committee that you'd like to bring up?
Just a couple of quick comments.
Yep.
Chief Eggebrotten said that the Citizens Academy has been well attended and is going well. And I, as a committee member, would like to thank you for bringing this opportunity to the people to learn more about law enforcement and what goes on. The police department responded to 967 incidents or calls for service in October. The fire department, there was some misinformation that had been put out in the media this past week about response times, and we just wanted to make sure that we clarified it a little bit. There was when someone is in an emergency, time stops, and it does feel like it's a lot longer, and there was a report that it took 45 minutes for our fire department to respond when actually it was 12 minutes. 11 minutes for the first person to arrive and 12 minutes for the first fire engine to arrive. And I just wanted to try and clear that up a little bit, that we do offer some very good response times for for full-time or part-time fire departments in the state. Also, for the first 10 months of this year, the fire department, our volunteer fire department, has responded to 171 calls for service. So over 17 calls per month. These guys are going out every other day or more to call. So thank you, Chief, and to all the volunteer fire members of your department.
Thanks, Marty. Appreciate the update. Alan, do you have anything on the Liquor Gambling Control Committee?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, and then Bruce, I know there's a couple things on the Public Utilities Commission, if you would handle
Thank you, Your
those,
Honor.
please.
The commission met today, and they're proposing the 2015 electric rates and utility fees that you have in your packet. These are basically just passing along costs from our main power provider, Missouri River. So the Utility Commission recommends approval, and I so move.
Is there a motion is made and seconded to adopt a resolution establishing a new 2015 retail electric rate schedule, which is recommended by our Public Utility Commission. Discussion on the motion?
Bruce, I'm just wondering what kind of increase is that to overall residential and so forth, you call?
What did we end up with?
Roughly about 5%.
5%, okay.
And it's a straight pass-through of the increased costs.
Okay. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried.
The second exhibit in your packet is for water and wastewater rates. Again, these have been reviewed by the Public Utilities Commission and primarily are going to reflect a little bit of cost increase, but primarily also looking at trying to build some dollars for the new wastewater plant as we move forward. So the Public Utilities Commission again recommends approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt a resolution establishing new 2015 retail water and wastewater rates, again recommended by the Public Utility Commission. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. Thanks, Bruce. We need to adopt a resolution canvassing the results of the city election held November 4th, 2014. You all have a resolution. I would entertain a motion to adopt that resolution.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded to adopt a resolution canvassing the election results for the city election on November 4th, 2014.
Can we have somebody other than Madeline?
Oh, I suppose.
Please,
Not so
make a
good.
motion, so, thank you.
Second.
Didn't think about that.
Who's the motioner?
Jamie.
Jamie.
And then seconded by Zeman.
Okay.
And we should
that's fine.
recognize that Jamie was the canvasser, so thank you for her service there.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jamie. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. Along that same line, Gloria asked me to announce that under our charter, we have to conduct an annual meeting, and now I've lost my lever here. It's the first, remember, Glory?
Tuesday following the first Monday, which will be January 6th.
You already figured that out.
So it's the
January
first-
6th, we'll have a short annual meeting in addition, to having our regular council meeting that month. And at that time, we've got two new council members that'll be sworn in at that time. I don't have recommendations for the Housing Authority. I think Marty told me that he had talked to Jim Hedstrom, or didn't you?
Yes.
And did he want to renew, or was he gonna let us know?
I told him you'd give him a call.
All right, I will give him a call. Thank you. Information, there'll be a public discussion on our 2015 budget and tax levy, and that'll take place during our city council meeting, and we'll start our city council meeting at 5, but we won't have this discussion regarding the budget and the tax levy until 6:01 PM. Anybody else in the audience have any item they'd like to bring before the council? Any city staff that has any additional items? Bob?
I just like to say thank you to Glory and her staff that worked on the election. You all know we had the election, but also we had the council back and forth about the testimony, and I think
Thanks, Glory. Tell everybody thank you. Was it a good turn? Did we have a good voter turnout?
We had a very good voter turnout.
Okay, you recognize.
All right, recognize, good. In front of you, there should be what's called a concession lease. It should have been in the packet, or it's one of the things that we're handing out.
What?
Concession lease. Just want to go through this briefly, because I'm asking for approval, and it should have been on the desks, but wasn't handed out in the packets.
So moved.
All right, I'll make it really quick for you. Okay? The city of Detroit Lakes will own Detroit Mountain roughly on Tuesday, the 18th of December. The management agreement then allows them to operate a liquor concession. The management agreement requires anybody operating a liquor concession to do so under a lease. We want to do that for insurance purposes and also for the purposes of their liquor license. And so voila, in front of you is a concession lease. I've drafted the lease, and I just want you to note a couple of things. One, the term of the lease is less than a year. That's something that is advantageous from a real estate tax standpoint, and so we've made it a term of 347 days, and it cannot automatically renew, so we'll be doing this every year. It wouldn't necessarily be Detroit Mountain Recreation Area that would be leasing the concession to serve liquor. It could theoretically be someone else. And the other thing is that this does not call for any rent. It doesn't call for any rent because under the management agreement with Detroit Mountain Recreation Area, all of the revenue of the facility has to be pumped back in the facility anyway. But I'm asking for a council approval of this because they want to open their bar as of the 28th of November, which would be before the next council meeting. So I would ask that the council approve the concession lease with Detroit Mountain Recreation.
Would somebody please make a motion a second?
Second it.
Motion has been made and seconded to adopt a concession lease regarding the Detroit Mountain Recreation Area. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion's carried. Any other city staff items? I should mention too that at our December meeting, I'm going to have recommendations for the board members on the Detroit Mountain Recreation Area. And as you recall, there's going to be 3 city representatives that will be on that board, and I have already got some names in mind, and I will get those to Gloria so she can mail them out to everybody in advance in case anybody has any concerns or questions about that. Dan, anything else? Marty? Jill?
On your honor.
Matt? Nothing?
I do.
You always do, that's good.
No, I think last month, but anyway, I got a letter out here that all council members got, and we'd like to invite you to Kiwanis Club on December 2nd for a free meal. This is actually a free meal for you. And I just want to recognize, we talked a lot about the elections, and Mayor, you'll probably have something to say on this maybe in December too, but I just want to recognize we're losing, I think, 2 good council people. You know, there's always turnover, but I think we've got a couple of guys that have served the community and the city very well, and I hate to see them go.
Good point. Thank you. The business of this council has come to a conclusion. The meeting is adjourned.